Listen to me closely. You clicked on this explainer because deep down you know something is wrong. Today, I'm speaking directly to you, not just as a host, but honestly, consider me your mentor for the next few minutes. Consider this your wake-up call. You've been living in this haze, just kind of wandering aimlessly through your own life. Well, we're going to look at the exact anatomy of your stagnation, and way more importantly, exactly how you break out of it. It is time to stop drifting. It's time to begin writing your ultimate anime arc. Picture this scene for a second. A totally black screen. Absolute silence. Somewhere tonight, there is a student just staring up at the ceiling at 2 a.m. And it's not because they can't sleep, you know? It's because they've done something kind of strange. They've pulled out an old, beat-up notebook from their very first year of university. They're looking at a broken promise. The absolute tragedy of the situation hits in just a single sentence written on that page. I'm going to change everything this year. The student reads it once, then they read it twice, and then they just put the notebook down very slowly because the ink is completely faded. Those words were written 3 long years ago, and absolutely nothing has changed. The promise was totally empty. This explainer is for that student. For the person who just keeps telling themselves, you know what, I'll start tomorrow. The person who constantly watches other people's success and feels this quiet, heavy pain inside. It's not jealousy exactly, it's something much heavier. It's that little whisper in the dark that says, man, that should have been me. If you're feeling that completely stuck, completely invisible feeling, I want you to stay with me. I'm going to show you something about yourself that nobody has ever told you. Let's dive into Act 1, the hidden pain. To really understand this pain, let me tell you about a guy. Let's just call him Aryan. So Aryan wasn't failing out. He wasn't getting into trouble. He was just average. But for him, average meant being trapped in this really tragic, endless daily loop. He wakes up with this strange heaviness in his chest. He opens his phone and immediately sees his classmates, Rohan and Priya, succeeding, landing these great internships, cracking tough exams. So naturally, he reacts. He makes a perfect, beautifully color-coded study schedule. He sits down to study, reads one single paragraph 4 times, gets super frustrated, opens YouTube, feels incredibly guilty, and repeats the entire cycle. Days become weeks, months pass by, and that beautiful schedule, it remains completely untouched. It's practically a monument to the person he just keeps promising to become. And the crazy part? Nobody at home knew. Nobody at college knew. He smiled in all the photos. He answered, I'm fine, with absolute perfection. He was literally the best actor nobody was watching. But listen to me right now. Aryan was not lazy. The most painful loneliness in the world isn't when you have no one around you. It's when you're surrounded by people and you are still completely, utterly invisible. He was suffering from the suffocating loneliness of being a side character in his own life. But do you really think this feeling of weakness is the end of your story? Think about every great anime protagonist you've ever watched. Naruto, Rock Lee, Itadori Yuji, Hajime Nagumo, Eren Yeager. What do they all have in common? Before their incredible, earth-shattering transformation, there was always a moment of absolute breaking. The dark cave of suffering always comes before the light. What you are feeling right now is not the end. It is literally the prelude to your awakening. Which brings us to Act 2, the brain thieves. Okay, I need you to brace yourself here because the tone is going to shift. That massive struggle to focus, that total inability to just sit down and study for your classes, it is not a personal failure. It is a biological hijacking. Your brain is being literally, scientifically, physiologically farmed. Every single notification, every endless scroll, every short video that makes you chuckle for 3 seconds and then just vanishes, each one releases a tiny little drop of dopamine. Tech companies employ actual neuroscientists whose only job is to make absolutely sure you cannot put that device down. They're actively harvesting your attention. You aren't just addicted to your phone, my friend. You are trapped in an invisible cage. It's called dopamine desensitization. See, your brain has been given so much cheap pleasure that it actually recalibrates. It entirely stops recognizing anything valuable that takes time to build. So when you sit down to read a dense academic textbook, your brain, which has been fed 100 microhits of cheap dopamine all day long, looks at the page and just says, nope, this is not worth it. It makes ordinary, necessary effort feel completely unbearable. You are caught in this brutal tug of war. Cheap, 3-second laughs on one side versus highly valuable goals that actually take time on the other. And the longer you stay trapped by that screen, the more ordinary life just feels gray and slow and incredibly boring. Real-life conversations feel dull, Books feel way too long, your own life goals feel impossibly far away, even silence feels like a punishment. Arian didn't know he was trapped in a system designed by experts to keep him docile. He just genuinely thought he was broken. And that leads us to Act 3, the slow destruction. We're getting into the darkest part of the drift here, because something far more serious than just your time is being stolen from you while you scroll away your university years. I want to ask you something incredibly uncomfortable. If I asked you to describe who you actually are, and I don't mean your name, I don't mean your college or your grades, but who you actually are at your core, could you answer? Take a real second and think about that. Feel that silence? That is the exact feeling of having absolutely no true inner compass. When you spend years in this state of drift, your actual identity gets stolen. You stop knowing what you actually like because an algorithm tells you what to like. You stop knowing what you actually want because your relatives and parents' dreams just replace your own ambition. Your own internal voice is completely buried under an avalanche of digital noise. Without a core identity, you really are just a side character living out everyone else's expectations. You become a person without a name. It all comes down to this one profound truth. Motivation is about wanting to become a person. There are literally thousands of productivity videos out there telling you how to work harder, giving you these crazy morning routines and life hacks, and you know what? None of them work. Because no productivity hack on earth works until you know exactly who you are trying to become. Why study hard? For what? To become who? If you don't know the answer to that, the action never begins. But right here is where the story shifts. Picture it. The silent library. A notebook opens, the training begins. This is the moment you finally snap out of the drift. You realize the algorithm doesn't care about you. Those cheap dopamine hits won't save you. You are sitting in that quiet library, you take a deep breath, and you finally actually decide to take control. Your hero training arc starts right now. First, I command you to physically write down your true personal values. Find out who you actually are. Second, stop chasing external validation and those cheap dopamine hits. And third, start treating your difficult university studies and those grueling academic challenges as your ultimate combat training. This isn't just boring homework anymore. This is the gravity chamber. This is exactly where you forge your strength. Overcoming that terrifying fear of starting, breaking through the heavy, dragging inertia of your past failures, that is the true mark of an anime hero's awakening. It is the exact defining moment the side character actively chooses to become the protagonist. You pick up the pen, you look at that faded ink from 3 years ago, and you start writing a brand new future. So it all comes down to one final challenging question. Are you ready to begin your ultimate arc? The algorithms out there want you to click away and forget everything we just discussed in this explainer. They want you right back in that cage. But you know the truth now. You know exactly how the brain thieves operate, and you know that your true identity is just waiting to be reclaimed. The training montage starts the very second this finishes. Get to work, protagonist. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome to this explainer. I am so glad you're here. Look, if you're tuning in today, chances are you're feeling tired. And I don't mean the kind of tired a quick nap or a good night's sleep can fix. I'm talking about a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. You might be a student, a young professional, or just somebody desperately trying to find your footing in a world that literally never stops demanding things from you. So right now, I just want you to take a deep breath. Settle in. Think of our time together today as a safe space, a quiet little room where we can finally unpack that incredibly heavy, invisible backpack you've been carrying around. Today, we're going to explore a really profound concept, rediscovering your purpose. And we're going to do it not by pushing harder, but by actually understanding your breaking point. Okay, let's dive into this. What is wrong with me? Seriously, how many times have you asked yourself this exact question in the quiet hours of the night? You've got the tools, you've got the education, you see everybody else around you succeeding, and yet you just feel totally stuck under this crushing weight of societal pressure and endless expectations. You feel broken. But what if the whole premise of that question is just entirely wrong? What if there isn't something wrong with you at all, but rather something profoundly misunderstood about how we process our own goals? To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look back at an old story from a mountain monastery. So there's this story of a young student who traveled for weeks to find a great monk. And this student was honestly just like so many of us today, exhausted, confused, and deeply frustrated with himself. He finally sits down before the wise old monk and just pours his heart out. He says, "Master, I know what I should do. I make plans. I have goals, but I cannot make myself do them. And then he spoke this incredibly profound truth. He said, I feel like I'm standing at the edge of a river I can never cross. It's honestly the ultimate allegory for the modern struggle, isn't it? Having the map, desperately wanting to overcome your personal barriers, seeing the destination right there on the other side of the water, but feeling entirely paralyzed on the riverbank. Now, how do you think the monk responded to this desperate plea for help? Well, he said absolutely nothing. Instead, he simply picked up a teapot and started pouring tea into the student's cup. And he just kept pouring. Even as the tea reached the very brim, the monk didn't stop. The hot tea overflowed, spilling out onto the table and splashing all the way down onto the floor. The student, totally startled, jumps back and shouts, "Master, the cup is full, it's overflowing." And this brilliantly illustrates the old monk's lesson. The monk finally smiled at the startled student and explained that the student was exactly like that teacup. You see, the student had come seeking to be filled with purpose, discipline, and direction, but he was already completely full. He was full of fear disguised as practicality, full of noise that he was calling thinking. The monk told him with this calm revelation, "You cannot pour clean water into a full cup, you must first empty it." The student stared at the tea spreading across the floor, and in that exact moment, it clicked. He understood. The problem was never that he had too little drive or too little motivation. The problem was that he was carrying way, way too much. Let's be real about what is actually taking up all the space in your mind right now. This is the noise filling your cup. You are not empty. You are overflowing. You're overflowing with your parents' fear of your failure, carrying their anxieties as if they were your own. You're filled to the absolute brim with society's definition of success. A definition, by the way, you never actually agreed to. You're saturated with the highlight reels of other people whose full, messy, complicated stories you don't even know. You're weighed down by that constant, nagging voice that compares every single one of your achievements to someone else's. And finally, you're just crushed by the pressure to be everything to absolutely everyone except yourself. Before you can build anything new, you have to release these external expectations. You literally have to empty the cup. Let's bring this out of the ancient monastery and into the modern world. Let's talk about a student named Arian. One late Tuesday night in October, Arian was doing what so many of us do when we're completely overwhelmed. He was doom scrolling. In the glow of his phone at 3 a.m., he landed on a video of a classmate he barely even knew. And this classmate was talking so confidently about a prestigious internship he just landed, all the amazing projects he was building, his grand, sweeping plans for the future. Arian just lay there and watched the entire video, 3 minutes and 47 seconds. He watched every single second of someone else's highlight reel. And when it finally ended, he slowly put the phone face down on his bed. He just sat there in the complete, heavy darkness of his room. He didn't cry. He didn't throw his phone across the room in a rage. What he experienced was actually far worse than that. He felt absolutely, perfectly, terrifyingly nothing. That right there is the emotional rock bottom. When the overwhelm of everybody else's success and your own perceived failure gets to be too much, your system just shuts down. It's this hollow, echoing numbness, a really deep internal loss. So the crucial point is what happened next. Underneath that terrifying numbness, if you dug deep enough, there was a single, piercingly honest thought. Arian realized, I don't even remember who I wanted to be. Notice what he didn't say there. He didn't say, I'm failing, or I'm behind, or even I'm sad. He had completely lost his own identity under the sheer weight of everyone else's noise. Now, this dark, hollow realization totally feels like a failure, but as a mentor walking this path with you today, I want you to know that this crack in the wall, it was actually the most honest moment of his entire year. We actually see this journey mirrored beautifully in storytelling, particularly in great anime. We expect ourselves to just smile, grit our teeth, and push through the pain, right? But the reality of true growth is very, very different. You have to break. You have to weep. You have to just sit with it. Think about Rock Lee from Naruto. When he's told he has absolutely no talent for ninjutsu, he doesn't just smile and blindly push through. He breaks. He weeps bitterly. He sits with the devastating loss of his dream. And it is only from that genuinely broken place that he finds a strength much, much deeper than talent, an absolute beautiful will. Or think of Naruto himself, sitting alone at his parents' grave, finally allowing himself to feel completely and openly sad after years of hiding it. Acknowledging your deepest pain isn't a weak moment, guys. It's the exact moment you find true strength. Your breaking point, that moment of total numbness or overwhelming tears, it is not your failure. It is a disguised beginning. It's the essential starting point for authentic transformation. When you finally hit that emotional rock bottom, you're actually being given this incredible opportunity to let go of all those old labels and expectations that were never yours to begin with. If you're feeling this right now, I highly, highly encourage you to open a journal and write about your own internal breaking point. Document the moment the cup tipped over. Section 6. The Uncomfortable Mirror. Facing the truth nobody tells you. Let's move to and see how this builds in your day-to-day life. I'm stepping into the role of the honest guide right now. Your future self, the one 5 years from now, isn't being built by grand intentions or what you promise yourself as you're falling asleep. It's built by what you actually do tomorrow morning. Every single day you choose the phone over the book, you become slightly more comfortable with distraction. Every day you choose a comfortable lie over a hard truth, you become slightly better at lying to yourself. And every time you say, I'll just do it tomorrow, tomorrow becomes a deeply ingrained habit, which is way more powerful than any actual action. Look, I am not pointing this out to make you feel guilty. Guilt without direction is just pointless suffering. I'm pointing this out to explain why it feels so incredibly hard to get unstuck. The reason change feels so impossible isn't just because the new actions are hard. It's because you are fundamentally changing who you are. And any human mind will naturally resist that with everything it has. Your old identity is fighting your new one. Those old, stagnant, procrastinating habits, your brain masterfully disguises them, labeling them as comfort and safety. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how we redefine what's actually holding you back. Try thinking of the fear of failure differently. It's simply a soldier defending the version of yourself that doesn't have to be brave. When your mind starts whispering, what if I try and fail? What if people notice? What if I don't deserve it? That is not logic talking. That is fear dressing itself up as logic. Every single one of those what ifs is just a soldier stationed at the gate, protecting your old habits so you don't have to step up and live the life you actually want. The first step to overcoming this inner resistance is simply seeing it clearly. You must look at your own habits and your own fears without self-hate, without spiraling into despair. You just look at it clearly. Like a doctor diagnosing a patient, you aren't blaming the patient, you are just diagnosing the condition. When you can observe your own thoughts and evasions with this calm, objective clarity, the healing truly starts. It leads to this incredibly quiet, peaceful feeling of a fresh start, right after you've finally allowed yourself to shed all those past burdens. The truth is not your enemy. The truth is the map. For so long, you might have been pretending to read a map of where you wished you were, totally surrounded by the heavy external expectations of everyone else. But today, the cup is empty. The noise is gone. That profound piece of internal truth is sitting right in front of you. So I want to leave you with this final thought to carry with you today. Are you ready to read the map of where you actually are and take that very first real step? Thank you so much for walking through this explainer with me. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Okay, let's just dive right into it. If you're tuning into this explainer today, there's a really good chance you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say there is a very specific, incredibly heavy kind of exhaustion out there. You know, it's that feeling of being completely and utterly stuck, right? Well, it feels like the rest of the world is just flying by at light speed. You've probably been watching other people's highlight reels for years now. You see their massive wins, those crazy before and after transformation posts, and honestly, it just feels like everyone else is living out these epic cinematic storylines, while you are just waiting. And somewhere deep down, right in the absolute quiet of your own room, when the phone is finally put away and the screens are off, there's this one question you've been secretly asking yourself. And look, I know this because it's a feeling I've carried myself. You look at where you currently are, you look at where you desperately want to be, and you just ask, when does my arc begin? Like, when are things finally going to change for me? Well, I need you to hear this clearly, coming from someone who has sat in the exact same spot you're in right now. It already has, seriously. The simple fact that you are sitting here engaging with this explainer instead of just mindless scrolling or swiping away to something easier means your journey is actually already underway. The real question was never, when will things change? The question was always, when will you decide to be the one who changes them? And honestly, that decision is happening right now. Okay, Section 1, Persistence over Talent. So to really understand your own arc, we kind of have to bust a massive myth. We have this tendency to think our favorite fictional heroes had it easy, right? Like they were just magically chosen by destiny. We are so utterly obsessed with the idea of talent. But talent is loud. It looks effortless, and crucially, it's just handed to you. But think about the fictional heroes that actually hit us right in the feelings. The ones whose early struggles mirror our own and literally make us cry. They don't rely on talent. They rely on relentless persistence. And persistence? It's quiet. It is deeply exhausting. And above all else, it is a choice. When the world told our favorite anime characters they weren't enough, they didn't just get magically stronger overnight. They made a really quiet, private, daily decision to basically become the living proof that the world was wrong. I mean, think about Naruto for a second. He didn't win because he was some effortless, innate genius. No way. He won because he flat out refused to stop, even when he was totally exhausted and completely alone. Or take Rock Lee. He didn't climb to the top because he was gifted. He climbed with this love for the daily, unglamorous grind that was so complete and so completely sincere that the universe literally had to make room for him. Because true greatness, it's almost never a grand public declaration. It's just a sincere refusal to give up when absolutely no one is watching you. Which brings us to section 2, building stone by stone. Let's step away from fiction for a minute and bring this right back to reality with the story of a student named Aryan. Now, Aryan didn't go through some overnight magical transformation. He didn't suddenly wake up with a six-pack or instantly become the top of his class or get some massive flood of external validation. Instead, he did the hard work. He built the actual architecture of transformation. Day 1 was literally just making one small promise to himself. By day 2, he was showing up quietly just to keep it. By day 30, he was stacking those kept promises like stones in a wall. And at day 186, 6 whole months later, he was sitting in the exact same room at the very same desk, but he was completely unrecognizable to himself. And it wasn't because his circumstances magically changed, but because he had built this unshakable self-trust. He trusted himself because he just kept showing up for the person he had decided to become. You know, we spend so much of our lives desperately chasing external validation. We crave the applause, the flawless exam results, the likes, the comments, the whole shebang. But let's be real, it's completely hollow. It is never going to give you actual peace. The real magic, that happens when you start choosing yourself. That bone-deep, truly earned trust only comes from the quiet, totally private, daily act of choosing yourself when the room is entirely empty. All right, section 3, the power of tomorrow. Now, choosing yourself daily means you are definitely going to have bad days. You're going to fail. And as a friend, just offering you some real-life advice here, I need to tell you that failure is 100% inevitable. But it isn't the failure that ruins your arc. It's how you react to it. Aryan actually had this habit on the days he failed, and trust me, there were a lot of them. He didn't catastrophize. He didn't use it as evidence that he wasn't good enough. Instead, he just opened a private notebook and he wrote one single word: tomorrow. We really need to redefine this word, because tomorrow isn't an escape. It's not procrastinating. It is a promise. It's literally setting yourself up for the next day. It is a stubborn refusal to let one bad day snowball into a bad life. And that right there is arguably the most underrated superpower in the entire world. The ability to begin again. Not just once or twice, but forever. You don't need to be perfectly ready to start. You don't need to be absolutely certain. You just need the extraordinary courage to wake up every single morning and try again, completely free from the heavy weight and the shame of whatever happened yesterday. This leads us to our final part, section 4, choosing yourself today. So let's tie all of this together. Your arc doesn't begin tomorrow. It doesn't magically start after you pass that big exam or when you finally feel, quote-unquote, ready. The beginning of every great arc starts with one honest question asked in silence. Then it just requires one small promise. Actually, right now, I want you to mentally, or literally, write down one single promise to yourself today. Just one, because your story is forged by just one day of showing up for yourself to keep that promise when absolutely no one else is watching. That is really all it takes to start. Always remember this. The main character was never the one with the most talent. They were the one who simply refused to let the story end before it got good. If you don't have perfect circumstances right now, that isn't a weakness. It's literally the foundation of a great story. Relentless persistence is what writes the best chapters. You just have to absolutely refuse to let your story end here. So your arc begins right now. But I do have one final favor to ask you. If this explainer found you at the exact right moment today, I want you to claim this new beginning. Go down to the comments right now and leave just one word. And not the word that describes who you were yesterday. I want the one word that describes who you are becoming today. I literally read every single one of them. Your story matters, and honestly, it's just getting started. Keep showing up.
Hey there, and welcome to today's Explainer. Look, if you're tuning in right now, I'm guessing you're really feeling it, right? That completely suffocating weight of academic pressure, the family expectations, and just that looming shadow of exams. You probably feel totally exhausted, burnt out, or honestly like you're falling behind in some race you never even agreed to run in the first place. Well, today I'm stepping right into the mentor role for you. We're going to take that exact pressure and transform it into something entirely different. We're going to start looking at your struggles not as a sign of failure, but as your very own personal training arc. So let's get right into it.
I want you to picture this student, Aryan. One random Tuesday night, feeling completely overwhelmed, Aryan did something pretty radical. He didn't force himself to study, and he definitely didn't sit there making some new color-coded timetable. Instead, he just wrote this single question at the top of a blank page: if nobody was watching, what would I actually want my life to look like? Not what his parents wanted, not what made, practical sense, just what he wanted. And then he sat there in total silence for 40 minutes, just him and that question. And in that silence, finally tuning out all the endless noise and expectations of the world, he actually began to hear his own voice.
You see, most life advice out there just completely misses the mark. We're constantly sold this really flawed mindset. How do I get motivated? What's the newest schedule or study hack? But true transformation, much like in the greatest stories ever told, it never starts with just a new routine. It starts with brutal honesty and total silence. The identity-first system completely flips the script. It asks, who am I becoming, and do I actually believe in that person? Because here's the secret. When you truly believe in the person you are actively becoming, motivation stops being this exhausted daily battle. It becomes automatic. It's natural, effortless even. The effort finally has a direction that actually means something to you.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates exactly what all the best anime series get right. Think about Mob from Mob Psycho. His entire character arc hinges on one deeply personal question. Who am I when you remove the powers? When he finally drops his armor and answers that as just a normal person, he becomes more powerful than ever. Or take Thorfinn from Vinland Saga. I mean, he's totally consumed by revenge until he finally asks, what is a true warrior? And answers it as a human being, not just a fighter. So when you strip away your academic armor, the test scores, the titles, who are you? Answer that, and the energy to do the work will absolutely follow.
All right, part 1, your training arc. Why struggles are not flaws. I know you're exhausted right now. Seriously, the pain of failure and the anxiety, it's very real, and I am definitely not here to romanticize your pain. But think about it. Writers never give their main characters a beautiful, easy life just to make things interesting. Let's look at some familiar faces. Suffering, when you walk through it with awareness, shapes something in a person that comfort simply never could. Gojo Satoru didn't become the strongest because his childhood was super safe. He became the strongest because he literally had to stand alone between the world and destruction. Levi Ackerman didn't become humanity's greatest soldier despite being born in the absolute poverty and violence of the underground. He became the greatest because of it. It taught him the fragile value of every single second.
So bringing this back to your life right now, that financial pressure you might be feeling at home, it's teaching you a fundamental understanding of value that people with easy lives will just never truly grasp. And your loneliness, it's building this profound inner depth that others are going to spend decades trying to fake. Every single rejection is forging a quiet, immovable character inside you. And every academic failure is teaching you the most important lesson of all. Your ultimate value as a human being has absolutely nothing to do with a test score.
I really want you to listen to this closely. The student who struggled and understood himself is worth more than the student who succeeded and never had to. Look, I know this is some tough love, but I need you to step back for a second and look at your current failures from the outside, exactly like you'd look at your favorite protagonist's darkest chapter. This is not the end of your story. This is precisely the moment your arc finally begins to matter.
Let's dive into part 2, the identity-first system, neurological recalibration. We're pivoting from story to science now, giving you a practical, 5-step neurological system to rebuild your study habits entirely from the inside out. Step 1 is identity before action. The old, flawed habit says, I want to study for 4 hours. Ugh, that sounds like a massive chore, right? Now consider the new identity. I am becoming someone who respects their own time too much to waste it. You absolutely have to name the person before you name the habit. The action will always follow the identity. Actually, the research is super clear on this. Without a fundamental identity shift, new habits statistically only last about 11 days. You aren't just doing a task anymore. You are proving to yourself who you are. Step 2 is what we call the 72-hour dopamine reset.
For 3 straight days, you need to completely starve your brain of social media, short-form video, and gaming. Just cut it out.
Basically, when you starve your brain of all that cheap dopamine, the boring stuff, it suddenly becomes interesting again. This reset isn't meant to be a punishment. It is a physical, neurological recalibration. We have completely overloaded our brains with constant stimulation. By stepping away for just 3 days, silence suddenly becomes bearable. Books actually become engaging again. Studying will honestly feel noticeably different to you. And this isn't just a metaphor. This is basic brain chemistry at work.
Step 3 is the 2-minute door. We really need to debunk this massive lie that discipline requires some kind of superhuman willpower. It doesn't. It simply requires a low enough entry point.
The rule is literally just open the book for 2 minutes. That's it. You never commit to studying for 3 hours. That's terrifying to a tired brain. You only commit to 2 minutes. Here's the actual physics of human behavior. Your brain resists starting, not doing. So by keeping the entry point incredibly low, you bypass all that initial friction. Once you're in motion, staying in motion is dramatically easier. And hey, even if you close the book after 2 minutes, you still kept a promise to yourself. You reinforced your new identity.
Moving on to part 3, building your proof wall and protecting the silence.
These final pieces are essentially your tools to cement that new identity. They're what will keep you anchored when exam season hits its absolute peak and the panic really tries to set in. Step 4 is building your proof wall. Every single night, right before you go to sleep, you must write down one thing you actually accomplished today. Not something you planned to do, but something you did. It can be as simple as, I read 10 pages.
Or, maybe it's just, I didn't open Instagram until 7 p.m. What's truly interesting here is how these tiny, seemingly insignificant lines start to accumulate. Over 30 days, these simple little sentences build into something extraordinary. They become undeniable, tangible evidence of your own personal growth.
Because self-belief is built from evidence, guys, not from inspiration. When those heavy exam expectations make you feel like you are totally drowning, do not go to YouTube looking for a quick, inspirational video. Don't look for outside motivation. Look at your own proof wall. Look at the undeniable evidence right in front of you that you are entirely capable of keeping promises to yourself.
All right, let's quickly summarize this whole actionable system, the 5 shifts. Number 1, identity before action. Number 2, the 72-hour dopamine reset. Number 3, the 2-minute door. Number 4, the proof wall. And finally, number 5, protect 1 hour of daily silence. No earphones, no podcasts, no inputs whatsoever. Let your mind produce its own thoughts rather than constantly consuming the thoughts of everyone else. This is the hour where you finally hear your own voice, just like Aryan did.
So I want to leave you with one final really important thought. This right here, it is not the end of your arc. The failure, the stress, the massive pressure, it's just the beginning of the part that actually matters. So I have to ask you, who are you becoming? Don't try to do all 5 shifts tomorrow. Start with just one today. Pick the one that hurts the most to acknowledge, because for sure, that's the one that will change everything. Your training arc starts right now. Now go get to work.